just for the technology here. There you go. Hello. Hello, my dearest peace lovers and peacemakers. Welcome to our podcast. Today is the 5th Tuesday of March. It's noon Pacific Standard Time, and we are live streaming our show from Seattle. And you're listening to Peace Mindedly, a podcast show featuring some of the finest peaceful bridge makers in the world. So we are focusing on Saudi Arabia today, a country full of mystery, exoticism, and corruption. Saudi Arabia is notoriously famous for oppressing women, killing political opponents, controlling oil prices, forcing Westerners to stay quiet in order to preserve Saudi investment in their respective countries, and making us believe that the kingdom is one of the most important countries among Muslims. And in fact, the last one is actually true. Saudi Arabia is one of the most important countries among Muslims. One of the main reasons is that if Islam stands on 5 pillars, a Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca, Islam's holiest city located in Saudi Arabia, is one of the 5 pillars. Hajj is one of the five pillars in the Islamic and Muslim ideology. The other 4 are believe in God, to perform daily prayers, to pay alms and zakat, and to do fasting during the holy month of Ramadan. In fact, we are approaching the holy month of Ramadan, and we have a host of programs for you during this period. Here we are exploring why Saudi Arabia is an important state and what we can learn about this country. Suzanne Koelbl. Okay, so I try to practice the last name, Susanne Koelbl. I'm just going to go with Suzanne, but she is an award-winning foreign correspondent for the German news magazine Der Spiegel. In her latest book, Behind the Kingdom's Veil, Inside the New Saudi Arabia under Crown Prince Mohammed Bin Salman, she unfolds complicated stories of tribalism and conflict that a 10-year-old can understand. And in fact, I put this statement into practice. With my 10-year-old, we read a few passages in the book, and we were able to discuss the matters was explained in the book, and we really have a very lively discussion with my daughter. Behind the Kingdom's Veil is a book full of tales of stories of high-profile Saudi monarchs, ultra-conservative Wahhabi preachers, common people on the streets, female friends, oppositionists, Jamal Khashoggi's murder, and the kingdom's dilemma to take its nation out of the state of traditionalism to the modernism. As a military and foreign correspondent, I'm going to bring Suzanne to our screen. Hello, Suzanne.
Hello, Sarah. Lovely to see you. Thank you for
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Susanne Koelbl is a military foreign correspondent, and she has covered wars in the Balkans, Central Asia, and the Middle East. To write this book, she lived in Riyadh and traveled throughout the Saudi Arabia. In fact, when you read the book, there are passages in the book that you see that where exactly she is traveling on the map of Saudi Arabia. She witnessed firsthand the inner workings of mysterious kingdom, and ultimately, like through journalist, she wrote what she saw. The book is organized in a portion-sized bite for us to read and to understand. Welcome to Peace Mindedly, Suzanne. So my first question is, so in the book you explain, we are talking about a male-dominant country, and then I was just so enamored and so excited to see that you, as a female foreign correspondent, can basically go to many of the gatherings and to many of the men gatherings. So I wonder why they were welcoming a foreign European correspondent within their gatherings.
Thank you for the question, Sarah. I mean, certainly it sounds a little bit odd, but it's not as complicated as you might think. I mean, all these gentlemen traveled, or not all, but many of them traveled the world already. They are fully in the picture that our world functions completely different than theirs, and we have different traditions than theirs, and they're also curious. I mean, what is this person doing here? What is her task? What does she aim for? And it's also, I think it's also a tradition that you welcome foreigners to understand what is their thinking. Maybe they have new thoughts. I mean, there have been discussions, like, for instance, there are these istrahas, they call it, when men meet in the desert in the evenings to play cards and to exchange views, and it's a segregated society still. So men and women have their circles, their entertainments, and it's separated from each other. So men spend their evenings together, and so that was indeed, I would say, a privilege to join and to figure out how they spend their time among each other. So, and I know from some that it was sometimes it was a point of discussion. Should we allow that? And they did.
Excellent. So yeah, they did. I mean, we are talking about a very generous, hospitable culture. I know that in Iran, in Turkey, in many nations in the Middle East, they are very hospitable. And then maybe they really wanted to boast their hospitality to a beautiful European woman in their gatherings, don't they?
I mean, I can absolutely support that. The generosity and the hospitality is amazing, and I mean, we come from different planets, you might think, in the first place, but most of them just welcome you kindly. And politics is not the first thing you would talk about. I mean, you would talk about where you're coming from, what is your. They actually are very keen to introduce you to their lives. They are very keen to make you understand why they are living as they live. In particular, when I remember in my there is a chapter where I'm visiting the city of Hale, and Hale is a city where you still find they're very proud of that they have continued to keep up their Bedouin traditions, and which are extremely conservative, but they are also in particular interested to make you understand that this is a very interesting and rich culture, and hospitality and generosity is the core of it. So there are tales about generous people who gave away their last sheep or their last anything in the house just to trade it for a lovely story that a foreigner would tell them. So
yes. Yes, yeah, I remember it's the Hatam Ta'i in Persian literature. It's a famous book that he was a very, very generous man, and he traveled to this Bedouin, exactly to Hale, this Bedouin location, and there was a shepherd that just slaughtered the only goat he had.
Actually, these Bedouins were leading me to his grave and to the grave of his family.
Oh my God! Yeah. Oh my God! You saw how Hatam? Oh my God!
Absolutely exciting. I in the first place, because I didn't get it, but it's a grave, and you still have stones in a circle which represent the family of this gentleman, and the story is famous throughout the Arabian Peninsula, and the people are very proud of these stories.
Yes, yes, I remember exactly that. In we read this story, and then how the story really moves forward is how Tamatai invites this shepherd to his area, and then when he came over to his basically court, he just, I mean, day and night slaughtering and having party day and night. So many other people just complained that what you are doing, are you out of your mind? He said that compared to what he did to me, this is just nothing, because he had only one goat and he slaughtered only the only living thing that he, I mean, the live stream, and then whatever I do, it doesn't really match. So I am, you know, honestly, I just have a confession, Suzanne, that I thought Hazamatai is a myth. And then when you say that actually went to his grave, now I can remember, I can believe that the story was actually the right story, the true story. And this is one thing that I learned out of so many other things I learned out of the book. So you're from Europe, you're from Germany. I've been in Germany so many times, and I've been in Middle East so many times, and in the US. I wonder, what are the, in your opinion, what are the major similarities and major differences between Germany and Saudi Arabia?
The major commonalities are that we are all people with the same aims in life to achieve. I mean, we all want to live in peace. We all want to live good. We all want to have a kind of freedom or liberties in our lives, and we want to improve. But that's the commonalities. In a segregated society, things are very different. I mean, equality between the sexes is not really engraved in that society, you can say. First of all, you certainly have easier access to men, because they are all over and
everywhere. Yes,
and whoever you deal with in the first place is actually a man. And then there is this complete different world of women, and the women's world is a very insider world, and extremely interesting. I mean, they have their leverages, I would say, if they belong to a good family, a well-functioning family. So they do have their means of influence, but certainly not in the sense as we are thriving for, let's say, an independent life. It's a life which is completely dependent of somebody who has to take care of you, and that looks a bit weird to us, but for some, it's absolutely what they want. I think that's changing very much right now, because politically it's what they wish. They wish to change the society, to really throw it in as quick, as fast as possible in modernity, which is something nobody has expected 5 or 6 or 7 years ago.
You're leading us to my 2 follow-up questions. The one question is on the screen. So you claim that many laws have changed, many men have not. So what do you mean by that? Yeah.
So many laws have changed indeed. I mean, like 6 years ago, women didn't drive. Women didn't really leave the house without being controlled by men. I mean, the man in the house had to decide whether the driver is available or not for you. He also decided whether it's allowed to be in a car alone with a driver, let's say from Pakistan or from Philippines or another country, which was also a question which could be raised, whether this is appropriate, yeah, or whether it's haram, means sinful. And so that has completely changed. Once you have the means, my friends, also my male friends, their wives are driving wherever they wish, and they do not even tell them where to go. I mean, so there is a complete new negotiations between the sexes now. I mean, many men are released from their duties to drive their wives everywhere they wish, which they had to. Others feel that they lose control. Then the Saudi society was kept in a quite not luxury, but well off. It was a well off society. This is not improving really right now. It's actually increasing because they don't have the jobs for the young generation. That means in numbers. So you have a lot of Saudis, young Saudis, that finished university and don't really have a perspective in their career, because the jobs they wish are not available. And what I see is that the income of women now becomes not something you would wish for, but it's definitely needed for many households. Many families need a second income now. And so the change of this society is something which is happening not because women struggle for liberties or want to have more freedom. It's actually a necessity, and so it's both. But at the same time, it's an ongoing negotiation between men and women.
And
so
coming from a hierarchy. So very quick analogy I can give about what's actually happening in Saudi Arabia. I can give analogy of Iran and Turkey back in 1922 and 1926. Ataturk and at the same time Reza Shah really forced the nation go out of traditionalism and be more westernized, and it was lots of backlash. Like for the first time, Ataturk had his wife sit by him without scarf, and Reza Shah did the same thing. But we didn't, according to many scholars that I interviewed, so they were saying that this kind of forceful coercion that takes the society out of this traditionalism to modernity didn't really happen in Saudi Arabia. And this MBS is just doing this. I mean, otherwise you have to just fight with everyone. Fight, and he's fighting with Wahhabi preachers. He's fighting with so many of those people. I wonder, we hear so much about Vision 2030. What is Vision 2030 in Saudi Arabia?
Vision 2030 is actually a program, indeed, to push the country into modernity. But actually, it's mainly. Certainly it's also a social transformation program, but mainly it's an economic transformation program. That means that the Crown Prince Mohammed Bin Salman understood that oil is not the future any longer. He has about 20 years to change this economy, and it's a complete oil-dependent country. And so he needed to open the society. If they don't want to get bankrupt in 20, 30 years, they need to transform the society. And that means to open the society to new industries. And that means tourism. And tourism means you need to allow people to travel, to come from other countries. And then you have certainly tourists want to have amenities which you need to provide, hotels. Certainly, you cannot keep up a segregated society. So the social transformation comes with the economic changes, and it's a necessity. And secondly, tourism is only one pillar of that. You also have startups that music, entertainment, sports, all these new industries shall attract tourists, but also their own people to stay in the country, not to travel outside, not to travel to Europe or to America to spend their money there. Actually, they want to attract their own people to spend money, and they also want to attract investors and tourists from outside. And the Crown Prince also wants to excite the youth that they can more identify with his new era of a crown prince, which most likely will become king very soon.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Tourism. We're talking about tourism. Saudi Arabia, because of its geopolitical, geostrategic location, has been and because of its Silk Road, has been basically a Mecca of pilgrimage. Because of Mecca, people are coming to Saudi Arabia, but the nation attracts very particular kind of tourism. It's just, it's one of the 5 pillars. You go and you must go, and attracts all of the Muslims. But talking about attracting not only Muslims but non-Muslims, and having this vision is somehow extraordinary.
It's absolutely. I mean, it's a very bold and brave move, but at the same time, I mean, he didn't really have a choice. You just mentioned before that there are a lot of people who are against it. I mean, there definitely are people who dislike that move and who would think that this is not the right way to go about it.
Who are those people who are against this kind of changes?
They are, especially the elderly people. Who lived through 40 years of really strict rule of Salafism, and who also educated their children that way. And I met, and I'm also describing that in the book, that, I mean, they talk not clear. I mean, it's more a religious conversation you would have. Nobody would criticize politics. That's not what Saudis do. They would not openly criticize the crown prince or the king. Definitely not. And it's also not something which can be recommended, because critiques are not really facing a nice treatment. Definitely.
And
not.
if you do, you may end up just, it's a costly, deadly cost. It's a good segment to just very quickly mention Jamal Khashoggi. I understand the environment. I mean, I am from Iran. I performed within a totalitarian authority and theocratic regime. I understand that there are certain rules and certain red lines that you should never pass. Somehow, when we were talking, you were saying that Jamal Khashoggi is viewed by Crown Prince and other people as a traitor. Why would you say that?
Mm-hmm. Jamal Khashoggi was actually a part of the elite. He was somebody that served high-ranking princes, top-ranking royal highnesses, and he was feeling quite safe. He was feeling that he was protected. And then when the new rulers came in, the people who protected him were stripped of their influence, of their power, of their financial means, partially. So of their leverages in that society, of their position in that Saudi family. I mean, their powerful position was taken away from them, and so that was something he didn't. I think he didn't expect, and then he didn't agree with what happened. He didn't agree with the diminishing space of people who were of a different opinion. And when he left the country, and he moved to the US, and he connected with influential media people, influential diplomats, he was considered as a traitor. And he wasn't silent. He didn't just go away. He openly criticized Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince, the policy, his strategy, and that was something which was also new. I mean, there are exiled opposition groups, always have been, and there was efforts to influence that, but this level of threat is a new thing, definitely.
So wouldn't you think that probably a journalist would do that? A journalist who wants to do his job is gonna just criticize authorities
inside the country?
Okay, the criticism is inside the country. I see.
That's a question, Sarah. Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So the question is, we say. So I'm wondering, wouldn't this be a journalist or a reporter's perhaps area to criticize authority, to criticize government? So wouldn't we do that?
Look, this is a kingdom. This is not a democracy. In Iran, they claim that this is a democracy. Means that you have plenty of different voices, and you can absolutely criticize that those voices cannot be raised.
But you can't. You go to jail.
you can't. You get red lines if you cross the red lines. Here, the red line is this is an absolute monarchy, and Jamal Khashoggi was, as I'm sure there are others who would think the same way, but he was openly suggesting a change of the system, that he actually wanted to have a constitutional monarchy, which is definitely a red line. Mm-hmm. And the opposite of what's happening right now. So this is a kingdom. This is not a democracy, and yes. And the consequence out of that is that you don't have freedom of speech.
Yes, you don't have freedom of speech. What does Saudi Arabia gets right?
Actually, a lot of things the crown prince has started and began, and are truly incredibly brave and right. I mean, the modernization of the society is a necessity. Otherwise, the country will not make it and will go back to what it once was, most likely. I mean, which was a very poor country. I mean, 60 years ago, 70 years ago, the people of Saudi Arabia were incredibly poor. And only thanks to the oil boom, they finally became, in only 2 or 3 decades, they became a very modern society with a lot of modern technology, infrastructure. And I mean, that's a miracle, actually, if you look at the country itself.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. When we come back out of the break, I would love to learn about poetry project, and then I have follow-up questions. Please stay put with me. You are watching and listening Peace Mindedly, a podcast show featuring peaceful bridge makers, finest peaceful bridge makers. We can claim that because we go through research, through anecdotes, to find our writers, and to find the guests that we believe are bringing meaningful conversations on the table about different subjects. We are live streaming our show on many social media channels, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, many. It's very easy to find us. Also, the same information goes on goldtune.com, a website I manage with the help of a group of foreign correspondents and journalists. We do this program and try to write about other nations within the peace journalism lens. GOLTUNE. Please check us out and submit to our newsletter. And of course, feel free to submit your questions and comments here on the conversation that we are having at the moment. We did have a few people who were writing to us and asking questions. For next Tuesday, we will focus on the power of language and poetry in Iraq and Syria. Kevin Jones, author of The Dangers of Poetry, Culture, Politics, and Revolution in Iraq, and Thomas Levy, who translated Rami al-Ashiq's poem, My Heart Became a Bomb, will talk to us about the power and danger of poetry in the Middle East. Unlike the United States, poetry plays a significant role in the Middle East, since straight-up criticism of the government policies can lead to deadly outcomes. People in totalitarian regimes learn to subtly convey meanings, hoping to address serious issues indirectly and perhaps via poetry. For this episode, we discuss how this practice takes place in Iraq and in Syria. Tuesday after, we will dedicate our first episode in Ramadan to food, and we will talk with two chefs and one cookbook producer about food and about food that refugee within their community prepare for their families. So basically, these people are, and many other, not only, we are featuring these three people, but them and many other are the contributors of a book, Recipe for Refuge: Culinary Journeys to America. Is a cookbook by many refugees who benefited from Refugee Women Alliance, an organization based in Seattle. And we will talk to those women and about their experiences and their food stories. Back to this hour, we are talking to Susanne Koelbl, an award-winning military and foreign correspondent for Der Spiegel, and author of Behind the Kingdom's Veil, Inside the New Saudi. I just want to show the book here. So yes, let me see. I didn't. Yeah, my assistant producer is not here with me today. Something happened and she couldn't make it. So I'm just doing my best. Behind the Kingdom's Veil, Inside the New Saudi Arabia under Crown Prince Mohammed Bin Salman. It's a book that I truly recommend. The book is organized in a small sections, and then it's very easy to just go through, informational, yet at the same time lots of interesting stories and Suzanne's interaction with people. So I learned a great deal about Saudi Arabia by just reading the book. So I do have Suzanne with me. Suzanne, tell me the structure of the book. How come you decided that this is the kind of structure you would like to go for?
Actually, what I tried is, to really, there are so many think tankers who wrote, or journalists who wrote books on Saudi Arabia now and about the politics and everything. So, you can certainly do that and you're well informed, but sometimes you don't want to learn it the hard way all the time. Yeah. So what I did is I tried to identify the questions which we all have about Saudi Arabia. So why are we so closely connected with them? They have very contradictory messages. Like on the one hand, they're close friends, the most important ally the Americans in the Middle East, or in the Gulf region, let's say. And at the same time, there is a fundamentalist religion which doesn't allow women to drive or to leave the house by their own will, or a lot of things I never understood. Or for instance, I mean, I'm reporting on wars and since 25 years now, and wherever I went, I came across groups that were funded by Saudi Arabia, or that had religious leaders that were educated in Saudi Arabia. So I was wondering, where is this coming from? What is the political aim, and what is the bigger strategy of Saudi Arabia? And at the same time, they are our ally. And how does this work? How does this get together? So that's one thing. And I also wanted to discover the women's life. What do they think? What is their lifestyle? What do they think about us? And I had a great, by the way. I mean, we spoke about hospitality, and first of all, I really have to thank all these wonderful people who allowed me to enter their lives, their houses. They invited me to their families, to their farmhouses, and I would not have expected that. I really made quite some good friends there, and we are still in touch. And so I had actually. So what I did is I tried to find. For instance, if you tell this story about what is the connection between the West and Saudi Arabia, our political and strategic interests in theirs, and so I was very lucky to come across Prince Bandar bin Sultan, who is the go-between. Between the kingdom, the Americans, and the rest of the world, who knows everybody, who has, I mean, he was the intelligence chief during the times of the Afghan war in the 80s, and he has organized the Mujahideen's fight against the Soviet Union. And at the same time, now he again has organized the war against Syria, I mean, which wasn't very successful, as we all know. But to just meet people like him who are really, I mean, I don't want to judge on the political aims, but just to identify these people are actually historic characters who were making history. And so that's one thing. But at the same time, I also met people who were terrorists once joining Osama bin Laden, and then now live as an electrician in Jeddah again, and founded a family, and is reflecting on his time, and how he then he was caught in Pakistan, and when Osama bin Laden disappeared, and he had joined him for 10 years, and really until the last moment. And then he went to Guantanamo and came back, and there is a kind of I would say an anti-terrorism academy. So he went through that program, and now is de-radicalized, is living a normal life again, but lost actually 15 years of his life. So to get into that, to tell political issues with the people that are involved, that was what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. Yes, political issues that were involved. You wanted to explain. The book is written for like Europeans, for Americans, for Westerners who really want to know about Saudi Arabia. Is #1 best-selling book on Amazon about, the easy understand, easy comprehend language that we can just go through. Who was your best female friend in your time?
My best female friend was Noura. she was actually, she's just an amazing woman. I mean, a young lady, a mother of 3, and now of 3, and I came across her way when she was working for an international company, and I was visiting this businessman, and she just very openly and friendly came up to me and said, "Why you don't join me for a wedding, or why we don't go to the desert?" And so she took me to all these incredible places where all the females or families meet, or to the birthday party of her daughter, which is really an experience with whatever 29 nannies from the Philippines, or 19, I think 19, don't want to exaggerate, and 19 drivers from the Philippines. And it's incredible how they celebrate birthdays, which is actually quite a new thing. So how do they deal with their children today? Or again, she took me, and this is, I like this story in particular. She took me to a wedding. And I asked her, and then asked her, I actually only brought one dress, whether that would be appropriate. And she said, "Certainly, we are among us only." And I came to that party, and I would not have believed, I did not believe what I saw. I mean, like 200 women, one more beautiful than the other, one more in a more sexy dress, wonderfully, I mean, super exciting hairstyles, makeup, I mean, incredible, but not one single man around. So what's going on here? And this goes on for 10 hours. And only for 15 minutes, the bride comes in, walks through the hall, sits on a throne for like 10 to 15 minutes, and then disappears. The groom is never seen, and you're wondering why all that effort. So again, one of the conclusions I could draw of the many insights I had, it's actually the marketplace to pick the wife for the brother, for the son, for somebody who you look for the right person in the family to marry. So I mean, that was really a lovely experience, and a lot of new insights.
Yes, and probably very unexpected. I can relate with you. Okay, tell us about Poetry Project.
The Poetry Project is something which is actually a result of all my travels and trips. But at the same time, it's actually the other way around. This time, not I went to other countries, but millions of people came to Germany to live here because they lost their livelihood, they lost their house, because wars have destroyed their life. So they came from Afghanistan, they came from Syria in millions, as you know. That was 2015. And I remembered very well, because we really didn't know who they were. Why did they come to us? And how did they come to us? And what is their story? And many of them were just only 12 or 13 or 14 years old. So people sent their children all alone the way, 7,000, 8,000 kilometers from Syria, from Afghanistan, from I don't know where. Syria is closer, I have to say, but Afghanistan, Iraq. So I started the Poetry Project. The Poetry Project is actually a workshop that is asking these young people to write about what happened to them, who sent them, what is the goal of their trip, what is really what did they experience. And we did this with a small group in the first place because I learned, so Sara, you come from Iran originally, that in poetry you open your heart, you really speak your mind from an emotional point of view. And at the same time, you don't have to reveal everything. Yeah, but it's a platform. It's an opportunity to communicate, which I think is unique, and it's extremely effective. We have asked these young boys and girls, like 13 to 15, 16, 17-year-old, to perform their poems publicly. And even people were many were very disturbed by the masses of people coming to our country. But you could see people were touched. All of a sudden, they could understand what's going on, what they went through, why they came, that they're just simply alone. They are just refugees that fled their homes because they don't have a place to live any longer in their country, or they don't have a future there, or they come with a task, even that, but they are pretty innocent. Yeah? So we did that. We have also created this book. We finally. It's called "I Wanted to Stay, I Left," and you would find it on our pages, thepoetryproject.de. So it's in Arabic, it's in Persian, it's in English, and in German. So I think that's a great bridge. Poetry is a wonderful way to share not only thoughts but emotions, which actually come together.
Yes, it's the music of, music of language, and also musical language, musical words. Excellent. When you were explaining the poetry project, and we were talking, you said that this time I didn't go anywhere, and they came to me, and we started this project, and then got me thinking that what happened, why you decided to become a foreign correspondent, and how come you travel so much?
Excellent question. Actually, the answer is pretty easy. I come from Germany. Germany had its last war. Ended its last war 1945. Actually, I was educated the way that we should never ever enter a war again. So once we did, after the wall came down, after 89 when Germany reunited, Germany went back to become a normal country in that perspective. And so I wanted to make sure that things go not completely wrong again. So this is how it began. And suddenly you end in very complex situations. Like, the Balkan Wars, which have been my first field of reporting in conflict zones, already showed that this is not only about 2 or 3 ethnic groups that are disliking or hating each other. They're also fueled of other inspirations and religions and so on. So all of a sudden, I was in a war in Afghanistan after 9/11. So once you are in Afghanistan, the whole world is actually mingling and meddling in this proxy wars, and so it took me quite some time to figure out who is doing what, who is wanting what, and I really wanted to understand and inform our people where have we landed there, and what should we do? What is the right thing to do? Which legacy do we leave in a country? And after 20 years now, you can see where we are in Afghanistan. Actually, we are not we, but the Americans are now negotiating with the Taliban to come back in a peaceful way. And I'm not so sure whether this will be really happening.
Yes. As a foreign correspondent, you have to work with people who understand the language. And it's so many translations and interpretations going on. How do you make sure that you actually understand the criteria you are dealing in your hand?
Experience helps. Experience helps, and I'm checking back and forth, and I'm dealing with people over long course of time. So we have a lot of discussions, and I try to make sure as much as possible that I really understand what people mean. Certainly, it's not perfect, but I would say Spiegel magazine is still a magazine that provides you with enough time and fact checking and resources that allow you to be quite accurate, and I appreciate it very much.
Excellent. I just want to ask also this question, and then we go to the final segment. Do people, when you go, you're European and you are from Der Spiegel and you are speaking, then perhaps from authority, do people get threatened by you? Like, do they really want to talk to you, or they are, I don't know. I'm just trying to guess the back and forth. Are they? How do they approach you when you are in a conversation with them?
I mean, usually you get introduced by somebody, and this person is the trustworthy bridge, and that's the easiest. I mean, but certainly you are traveling, you always get in touch with new, or you're always meeting new people. So it's it's like everywhere in the world. Yeah, you need to convince somebody on the one hand, you need to convince somebody that they can trust you, and on the other hand, many people are not very experienced with media, and so it's actually on us, on our side, to make sure that that they would not get in trouble, because we understand what it means that if their name is fully fully mentioned, or we should be the ones who should protect them, because because we live in social media times that everybody's posting pretty much anything and is not afraid of that. But I think we can evaluate and we can assess better than many people who are just not experienced people, if this is dangerous for them or not.
Yes, exactly. So I was a BBC fixer and a stringer, oftentimes just communicating with the foreign correspondents and connecting. And I had always two suggestions. The first suggestion is, don't only let me to be your gatekeeper and try to get the information from other sources. And the second, just be careful, because people who are talking to you sometimes really put their lives in danger. I mean, security or intelligence services do come after them, and you've been watched by the government and by the intelligence services, to just be mindful. And you exactly mentioned those two things. Please stay put with me. You are watching Peace Mindedly, a podcast show featuring peaceful bridge makers. This hour we talked to Susanne Koelbl. Before the show, Suzanne and I went into a strength length to just me trying to say it in a perfect German, Balkan, Croatian, whatever language that we can, I can pronounce the last name, but I'm still going with my own way that I practice the last name. Author of Behind the Kingdom's Veil, Inside the New Saudi Arabia Under Crown Prince Mohammed Bin Salman. The book is available on goldtone.com, on Amazon and many online bookstores. It's #1 book in Saudi Arabia, and it's a worthwhile reading. It's a quick, and as I said, I was just reading with my 10-year-old Rana, my daughter, and then we were just discussing the book. So it's a fun and good read. At the end of every program, we ask our guests to close the program by sharing something meaningful about peace, about kindness and compassion. And I know that Suzanne has a statement or something to share with us. Go ahead, Suzanne.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for having me. I just mentioned this project, the poetry project. I have had a couple of experiences in in your home country, Sarah, in Iran, for instance, when I was invited in Tehran for dinner, and somebody stood up all of a sudden in the middle of the dinner and told us a poem he has just written the last night, which was very emotional. I mean, in the first place, it was a little bit surprising for me that has never been witnessed a situation like that before in a private dinner conversation. But I was very touched, and he sat down again, and as you can see, I never forgot. I'm telling you now. And so that was the beginning that I started to be interested in poetry. And one of the most beautiful poets in that region is Jalaluddin Rumi. And I just want to leave one of his quotes, which I really like. And in a changing world, I think it's also very well fitting, where we all need to understand each other better. It's a necessity that we open our hearts for each other's differences. Love is the whole thing. We are only pieces.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Suzanne. It was an honor to host you on Peace Mindedly. Thank you, everyone, and Khoda Hafiz.
Khoda Hafiz.
Khoda Hafiz, yes.